our Major League Baseball season win total betting guide starting to get posted over at BangTheBook.com. All 15 American League team previews are posted along with the National League East. Then I had to stop, do the show here, and I'll finish posting the other 10 this afternoon over at BangTheBook.com. But very excited about that. A labor of love. I put a lot of hard work into that, so I would greatly appreciate it if you read it, shared it, passed it along. We'll have a full PDF coming on Friday. We'll have it posted to Amazon next week as well. So lots of stuff going on over at BangTheBook.com with my MLB betting guide. And in fact, I'm going to start off this edition of the program with a new segment of the Bettor's Box, my MLB betting podcast. A lot of you have signed up for the mailing list for the notes. I greatly appreciate that. Adam at BangTheBook.com in order to do that. If you want to get on the list for the notes, a lot of the stuff I talk about here in the preseason lead up will be in that MLB betting guide, will be in some of my other preseason baseball content over at the website. But very happy to have that guide going up. Like I said, PDF coming on Friday, Amazon next week, and some other exciting stuff coming up here in the not too distant future. In the second part of today's show, I'll chat some basketball with John Ryan at John Ryan Sports and the number 1 on Twitter, regular contributor to BangTheBook.com, with 3 different articles in NBA buy and sell, a look at the Big East, a look at the Big Ten, a week-long look for both of those conferences. And in fact, we're actually going to talk about those concepts and topics here on today's show with an NBA buy and sell coming out of the All-Star break and also previews of those 2 conferences. Aside from my MLB guide over at BangTheBook.com, we still have a lot more stuff. We got daily NHL from Parker Michaels. NBA picks are back from Chris Wassel after the All-Star break. We've got NBA power ratings from Noops. We've got additional NBA content on the daily, as well as college basketball content. I even found the time somehow this morning to write up a preview of Vermont and Stony Brook, but we got a lot of daily college basketball content from Alan Moody as well. My 3 weekly situational articles. I got a UFC preview up for you. Got a NASCAR preview for the Pennzoil 400. Tons of stuff going on over at BangTheBook.com. Make sure you check it all out. Finally, as you know, this and every edition of Bang the Book Radio presented by our friends over at DSI Sportsbook. BTB and the number 200 is that promo code. 100% deposit match bonus for the sportsbook. 100% deposit match bonus for the live casino at BetDSI. It's only a game until you bet it. Once again, that betting guide over at BangTheBook.com. I got a pick on every team, stats, data, lots of research, fantasy impacts for certain players. And I'll also be doing player and team futures stuff, which will be going up here on Thursday at BangTheBook.com. Will be added to that PDF betting guide. And also, too, I know I use a lot of advanced metrics and maybe some statistics that you're not familiar with. I do have a glossary that goes in that betting guide as well. That will also be updated over at BangTheBook.com. I've got to add some new stuff to it that I've been using here of late. But that article will be updated at BangTheBook.com as well as in the MLB betting guide. So definitely looking forward to finally releasing the full thing here on Friday in that PDF. But you can find all of the individual components over at BangTheBook.com here by the end of tonight. All right, so like I said, I'm going to be doing the Bettor's Box here. And I'm going to start something new here. I'm going to do a segment over the next 6 editions of the Bettor's Box called 5 and Fly. I'm going to do each of the 6 divisions. We're going to do 5 minutes on each team. So that's why it's called 5 and Fly. And in fact, I'm actually sitting here with my phone going to time this to get to as close to 5 minutes as possible. But the AL East will be today, the AL Central next Monday on February 24th. The AL West next Thursday on February 27th. NL East will be March 2nd. NL Central March 5th. NL West will be March 9th. So I'm going to go through all 6 divisions here over the next 6 editions of the Bettor's Box in this 5 and Fly segment. Like I said, going to be timing these on my phone to get as close to 5 minutes as possible. So go ahead and start here with the Baltimore Orioles. Their season win total 56.5 for the upcoming year. And as I wrote about in my guide, a major buy-in with sabermetrics for the Baltimore Orioles. They bring in kind of a new school manager type guy in Brandon Hyde. They brought in Mike Elias. They brought in Sej Megdal, who, Megdal is a guy that, Sig Megdal, is a guy that has one of those Ivy League educations. He's very, very well-versed in analytics. Baltimore is going all in with this. And as a general rule, I like to believe in teams that are going the analytics route, that are making some changes. Last year, Baltimore 54-108, but their Pythagorean win-loss was 60-102. Their base runs 59-103, and their third-order win percentage, which is a win-loss record based on strength of schedule, some of the underlying metrics that are over at Baseball Prospectus, also had them more like a 59-103 team. So the advanced metrics paint a little bit of a brighter picture here for the Baltimore Orioles going into this season. Last year, they were only 11-22 in one-run games. That was the fewest number of one-run wins in Major League Baseball. So I like to think this Baltimore team will show some improvement here this season. And obviously their season win total line up 3 games, up 2.5 games from where they finished last year. I think there's a chance that this team does go over the total. This is just a lean, a very small lean for me. But last year, they were a better team in the second half. They were something of a positive regression candidate in the bullpen, and that did improve a little bit in the second half, but I certainly expect that to improve here going into this upcoming season. Now, for Baltimore, you've got a key guy in Trey Mancini. Hit 35 home runs last year. Very, very good contact quality. Ran a fairly high 326 batting average on balls in play for a guy that saw a home run increase up to 35. But again, the exit velocity and the contact metrics do support the fact that this is a guy that could wind up posting a higher BABIP and also sustaining that higher level of power from last season. The problem is that there's a chance that the Orioles do trade Trey Mancini. Now, I think you try to build around a guy like that because even though he's not a great outfielder necessarily, he's got some pretty good offensive metrics. And this is a team that just doesn't have a lot of very good offensive players. And in fact, lost one of their better ones last year in Jonathan VR. So now you kind of look at this team and you sort of wonder where they're going to end up long term because they don't have a great minor league system. So maybe a guy like Mancini gets dealt with, some ample time left on his contract in order to help out this minor league system. Now, on the pitching side, John Means had a really bad second half. He's also a regression candidate, 360 ERA, 441 FIP, 548 xFIP. Again, like I've talked about in previous segments, a guy with a lower ERA and a higher FIP and a higher xFIP, generally viewed as a regression candidate. But the thing about Means is that he's very, very good at inducing weak contact. And this is something that FIP and xFIP can't really account for. Because again, as I mentioned on last week's show, FIP and xFIP, strikeouts, home runs, hit by pitches, and walks. Well, when you talk about a guy that's got really good contact quality metrics, he's not going to get hurt as badly because he's got good command. He's able to stay out of those nitro zone hitting areas where guys barrel up a lot of baseballs. So for a guy like Means, I think regression will be coming, but I don't think it will be to the degree of regressing to his FIP or his xFIP. 360 ERA last year, 441 FIP. I probably peg Means somewhere in the 385 to 390 range from an ERA standpoint, maybe as high as 4.00. Not going to be a guy that completely craters, but now you don't have Dylan Bundy. You got some more question marks here in this starting rotation. So I think for the Orioles, again, I'm not expecting a massive upgrade or anything like that, but because they played better in the second half, because these analytically savvy teams generally make little improvements at the margins. Guys will throw their better pitches more often. Guys will locate a little bit differently. The plan of attack will be different. I do think that Baltimore here for the upcoming season does look like a little bit of an improved team. So I'm leaning over 56.5 here with the Orioles. Not a strong play by any means, but I do think that this is a team that will be a little bit better here for the upcoming season. The Boston Red Sox here, 84.5 is their season win total. And obviously with a team like Boston, the optics of the offseason just do not look very good at all whatsoever. You get the Mookie Betts trade. You get owner John Henry crying poor. You get the team taking Eduardo Rodriguez to arbitration over a pretty paltry sum of money. And I understand that Eduardo Rodriguez is a guy that's been hurt. And obviously there's some increased injury risk there with that. But that's obviously a case where you're not looking to sign that guy long term. And taking a player to arbitration like that over a few $100,000 is a suggestion to them that you're not interested long term. And I always worry about those situations a little bit because now if you're Eduardo Rodriguez, a guy that has had, by and large, a chronic knee injury, let's say that flares back up. Let's say that pops back up. In the interest of body preservation, are you going to go out there and bust your ass for this Red Sox team that took you to arbitration, that, talked negatively about your performance to try and support the side that they were on with a lower salary? Are you really going to go out there and bust your ass for a team like that? Probably not. So that worries me a little bit about Eduardo Rodriguez here. Not to say anything about his character, but, self-preservation is an important thing when, as a pitcher in Major League Baseball, you might get one big free agent contract. So for Rodriguez here, if that knee issue flares up a little bit more, or a back or a neck, something like that, which he's also had some issues with sporadically here throughout his career, I don't know if he's going to push through those things as much as somebody in a different situation might. And again, not an indication of anything, character or anything like that, but when you start looking at this Red Sox team, Chris Sale is a huge bounce-back candidate. 4.40 ERA last year, 3.39 FIP, 2.93 xFIP, elite strikeout and walk rates once again. His career left on base percentage, 77.4%. But last season for Sale, it dropped to 66.7%. Massive increase in home run per fly ball percentage. Chris Sale is a bounce-back guy in a big way, getting back to an elite level as long as he's healthy. So he's going to be good. Eduardo Rodriguez, when he's out there, is going to be good and finally pitched over 200 innings last year for the first time in his career. The problem is that Boston has to replace 335 and a third innings from David Price, Rick Porcello, and Andrew Cashner. Now, Porcello wasn't good last year, and that was a guy that I highlighted coming into the season as a guy that I didn't really like a whole lot. Cashner, not a guy that I'm always high on. Price was pretty good when he was out there. But there's a very big gap between average performance as a starting pitcher and below average numbers. And I think Boston could really fall victim to this here with the back part of their rotation if a guy like Nate Eovaldi doesn't get better. So this is a very precarious situation for Boston here where they do have an elite upside guy in Sale and a very good upside guy in Rodriguez, but both of those guys have injury concerns and considerations. Eovaldi, another guy that's been hurt. Boston's rotation could be very, very bad for this upcoming season. Now, fortunately, even though they lose Mookie Betts, they still have a very good offense. They still have Rafael Devers, who hit 32 home runs from May 1st on. And in fact, Devers actually posted a weighted on base average very similar to that of JD Martinez from May through the end of the regular season. Martinez was 386 for the year. Devers was 385 after a slow start in the month of April. So Martinez, Devers, very good offensive players. Xander Bogaerts coming off of a career offensive season. Alex Verdugo is a guy I like quite a bit as long as he's healthy. Andrew Benintendi is a bounce-back candidate. You got a guy with big-time power in Michael Chavis. You've got some offensive pieces here for Boston. I think they can outscore the opposition to still win a lot of games. The bullpen is decent. I think the bullpen is a little bit of a regression candidate, but there are a lot of worries here as you start narrowing down the Red Sox, and all of them are on the pitching side. So offensively, they're going to be very good again, but the pitching staff, the ceiling may be defined by what the guys after Sale and Rodriguez are able to do. Because I think Sale's going to be great. I think Rodriguez will be very good. What about those other guys? What about the bullpen with guys like Brandon Workman, who I think is a regression candidate going into this season? Maybe a guy like Matt Barnes could be a regression candidate as well. So I think the Red Sox have a lot of question marks, a lot of concerns. Their season win total 83.5 here, and I do lean towards the under. Now, it's not a strong play at all, but that is my lean there with the Boston Red Sox. The New York Yankees, their season win total 101.5. Massive season win total here, second highest in Major League Baseball, trailing only the Los Angeles Dodgers in a lot of places. And I'll say this, last year the Yankees won 103 games, but there are some mild concerns here. Their Pythagorean win-loss was 99-63. Their base runs record, 94-68. And their third-order win percentage, they were a 95.5 and 65.5 type of team. The Rays actually had a better record than the Yankees, according to base runs and third-order win percentage. So, why was that the case? Why did the Yankees overachieve so much relative to some of those alternate standings metrics? Well, I've talked about that concept before of cluster luck. What cluster luck basically means is that, maybe you're not a very good offense with the bases empty, but you're great with runners in scoring position or great with men on base. Or maybe on the flip side, you have negative cluster luck, where you're very good with the bases empty, but you just can't cash in those run scoring opportunities with men in scoring position. That is the concept of cluster luck, and it works both offensively and on the pitching side. The Yankees, with the bases empty last year, with nobody on base, hit .249 with a .329 on base percentage and a .469 slugging percentage. With men on base, the Yankees batted .293 with a .364 on base percentage and a .518 slugging percentage. So they were about 45 points higher in batting average. They were about 35 points higher in slugging percentage and on base percentage, and about 50 points higher in slugging percentage. So when you look at base runs, which again is that context neutral environment, base runs has no idea if guys were on base or if they weren't. So that's how the Yankees wound up overachieving by 9 games from a base run standpoint, is that a lot of their really positive offensive outcomes came with men on base. Is that sustainable? Well, I don't know. Because you've got a Yankees team that has one of the best offenses in baseball. 15 players last year posted a weighted runs created plus, a WRC plus, of 100 or better. And the league average, if you're a league average hitter, based on WRC plus, you have a 100 mark. 15 guys were above that last year for the Yankees. 12 of them are still around. One of them is Aaron Hicks. We'll see what happens with him coming off of Tommy John surgery. But this is a team that that missed a lot of time with Aaron Judge, a team that missed a lot of time with Giancarlo Stanton. So this is a team to me where I think their numbers with men on base do regress a little bit, but I think their numbers with bases empty get better. So what happens is maybe the Yankees aren't as successful with men on base, but they're going to have more opportunities with men on base. So I think to a degree that kind of cancels out a little bit of that cluster luck going into this season. The Yankees' run differential was plus 204. Their base runs run differential plus 134. So that difference of 70 runs right there illustrates just how much cluster luck they had last season. But again, I think they have more opportunities to score runs this year with a better slash line with the bases empty. So that may offset things a little bit. But on the pitching side here, James Paxton already out, as we've talked about before. Domingo Germán out for the first half of the season because he's suspended. But they get Garrett Cole and they get Luis Severino back. So they're just going to replace the innings lost by Paxton and Germán with hopefully full seasons of Garrett Cole and Luis Severino. They've got good depth at the back end of the rotation with guys that I think can be successful. The bullpen is elite. It's among the best in baseball. I do think that when you look at Garrett Cole, I think his numbers will drop off a little bit. Minute Maid Park, tailored more towards defense, tailored more towards pitching, wasn't a great park factor, even with how good Houston was offensively. We know Yankee Stadium, an elite park for hitters. So I do think Garrett Cole's numbers do regress a little bit, but the high strikeout percentage will help. The offense will help. The elite bullpen will help. It'll help him in terms of stranding runners, things of that sort. So the Yankees over 101.5 is what I would look at here. But this one is also not a bet. This is a lean. This is a pick for the guide and for the segment. But I think in a lot of cases, the Yankees are going to be a very, very good team this season. And it definitely have the talent level to win about 105 games. We move on to the Tampa Bay Rays here. Their season win total 90.5. Like I said, last year they were a 96-66 team, but they won the AL East relative to base runs, won the AL East relative to third order win percentage. And a lot of people are going to say, well, who gives a shit? The actual results are what really matters. Yes, but you use these alternate standings metrics to try and find positive and negative regression. The Tampa Bay Rays numbers don't suggest either to me, but what they do suggest is that their performance last season was 100% legitimate. They were 96 and 66. Their season win total this year of 90.5 implies that they won't be as good. But their base runs and third order win percentage marks were higher than 96 wins. So I don't know how we're expected to see regression from this team in a negative way. This is an elite pitching staff. They were third in ERA last year, first in FIP, third in XFIP, second in strikeout percentage, third in walk percentage. And here's the caveat. They got less than 170 innings from Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow combined. Blake Snell, the reigning Cy Young MVP from 2018, he only threw about 104 innings or so, I believe, 103 innings, something like that. Tyler Glasnow only threw about 65 innings, and he was on a breakout pace. Tyler Glasnow is a guy that's very interesting because I talked about this last season on the Bettor's Box that his new pitching coach in Tampa Bay, Kyle Snyder, is 6'7" or 6'8". Tyler Glasnow is also 6'7". And one of the things that's really difficult to do is understand literally the view from where Glasnow is coming from. You can see it on film or something like that and try to help the guy out, but Snyder can literally see from that perspective. Glasnow's raw stuff is elite. The fastball velocity is good. The spin rates are good. The late action on his off-speed stuff is very, very good. And obviously, he can change eye levels a lot, being as tall as he is. But it's very hard, even with a pitching coach as good as Ray Searage in Pittsburgh was, to really maximize a guy like that skill set because you can't see where he's coming from. Snyder can. Snell and Glasnow throwing 300-plus innings for this team on top of what they had last year. I think this could very well be the best pitching staff in Major League Baseball this season. And they have an elite bullpen to boot. Now, with that, you're going to have an elite pitching staff, like I said, possibly the best in baseball. What about the offense? I think this offense is very, very interesting. For one thing, they've got a lot of good players. They've got a couple of great players offensively with a guy like Austin Meadows primarily, but they've got a lot of good players offensively. And I've talked about this before, but teams that have a lot of average or better players have a massive impact or have a massive advantage over a lot of other teams because they're putting out negative players. And the guys that didn't hit offensively for Tampa Bay, like a Mike Zunino, like a Kevin Kiermaier, graded very well defensively. Manny Margot is another player that doesn't grade super well offensively, but he's an elite outfielder. So you've got Margot, you've got Kiermaier, you've got a pretty good defensive team overall. That'll help this pitching staff. But the other guys in the lineup are very versatile. They're good hitters, and they've got good skill sets that really complement what the Rays are trying to do. Now, I will say this. At home, the Rays only scored 4.52 runs per game. On the road, they scored almost 5 runs per game. They were 22nd in home runs hit at home last season. They were 12th in home runs hit on the road. Tropicana Field is a graveyard for fly balls. So when they're at home, their pitching staff plays up. When they're on the road, their offense is pretty competent. It's pretty average or maybe a little bit better than that. This team is like a chameleon. They can win high-scoring games if they need to. They can win a lot of close games because they're going to have the better bullpen in just about all of the games that they play this season. Austin Meadows en route to being a star. They've got a good lineup. They've got a great pitching staff. This is my favorite season win total in the American League East. Already bet the Rays over. I found an 89 heavily juiced, but over 90.5 is what I really like here with the Tampa Bay Rays, who I think are a very, very good team, an underrated and underappreciated team. They could give the Yankees a run for their money for the division, but I do think Tampa Bay ultimately winds up hosting the wild card game here for this season. One more team in the American League East, that is the Toronto Blue Jays. Their season win total 75.5 here. Last year, 67 and 95, 71 and 91 in terms of Pythagorean win-loss, 70 and 92 in terms of base runs. But the Blue Jays in the second half played at a 75 win clip. If you extrapolate their win percentage in the second half out to 162 games, you get 75.33 wins, which is exactly where this season win total line is sitting. Vladimir Guerrero, Bo Bichette, Kevin Biggio, those guys really took hold and they played better. There was more excitement about this Toronto Blue Jays team. They've also got younger guys like Lourdes Gurriel. They've got a better catching tandem here with Danny Jansen and Reese McGuire. Randall Grichuk is not that old of a player. Teoscar Hernandez hits the ball violently hard. They've got a lot of good pieces in this offense, in this lineup. The core group graduating from the minors created a buzz. You know, this is a team where attendance has been falling. They kind of started to feel a little bit better about themselves once they got to the second half. But something that they badly needed to do was upgrade the rotation. And they did that. They pick up Hyun-Jin Ryu. They pick up Chase Anderson. They pick up Tanner Roark. Are these guys going to be great? I don't know. Hyun-Jin Ryu could be very good. I like Tanner Roark. I think Tanner Roark is an underappreciated type of guy. He's an average type of starter, but a pretty durable dude. A guy that I think, you know, sometimes his raw stuff can play up a little bit. Chase Anderson coming from that pitching factory of the Milwaukee Brewers. I kind of like that as well. They've got competent major league pitchers in the rotation now. And I wrote about this in my season win total that, you know, maybe a guy like Ryu cancels out with a guy like Stroman. But when you look at the guys that Anderson and Roark are going to be replacing, it's a big upgrade to go from average to whatever the hell that was last season for the Blue Jays at the back end of their rotation. So some very big upgrades. I still love Trent Thornton. There are guys around the league that I really, really like for one reason or another that I just can't quit. If Trent Thornton starts for the Blue Jays this year, I'm going to lose money on this guy. I know I'm going to, but he has elite spin rates on the fastball, the curveball, and the slider. In fact, his slider was one of the best in baseball. It was the second highest spin rate in baseball. And there's a high correlation between spin rates and success because pitches move more. They've got tighter spin. They don't flatten out as much. You stay off the barrel. High spin rates are very, very important for a lot of guys out there. I think Trent Thornton could be one of those guys that could harness that potential. And maybe they put him in the bullpen. And if they do, I think he has the upside to be an elite level reliever. And that could help a bullpen that I think is a little bit of a problem area here for this team. But again, you get those young guys coming up in the lineup. You get that core group graduating from the minors, but they've got some pitching coming too, including a guy like Nate Pearson, one of the top pitching prospects in the minor leagues. He'll probably show up here around the middle of the season. The Blue Jays, to me, are a streaky lineup and a team that will pummel guys that don't pitch well and don't have good command. But I also think that when they step up in class and face better pitchers and better pitching staffs, it could be ugly. So the Blue Jays, I think, are a very high variance team, not just from a season win total standpoint, not just for the full season, but on a game-by-game level as well. Because you've got this young lineup. You've got this group of guys learning on the fly. You've got this pitching staff where Ryu's park factor changes a lot, going from Dodger Stadium to Rogers Center, and of course the road ballparks of Yankee Stadium and Fenway Park. Ryu's a guy that I think could be kind of hit or miss. Roark and Anderson, same thing, where those are average guys because sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not so good. I think Toronto is a very high variance team on a full season level, on a game-by-game level, but I'm leaning towards betting the over here. Now, I'm not going to do it as early as I bet some of the other overs, like Tampa Bay, like another over that I played with the Cincinnati Reds. I want to see this team stay healthy through spring training because there's not great depth with this team. I want to see this pitching staff stay healthy, but I think this team can make a big leap. I think this team can be a whole lot better, a lot more exciting, a lot more talent. That infusion of talent is a big deal here for Toronto. So I am leaning towards betting the over 75.5. I like it, but I want to see this team get through spring training healthy. Not too bad there. 25 minutes and 4 seconds across the 5 teams, kind of give and take a little bit with that 5 and fly segment. But once again, we'll talk the American League Central Division here coming up on Monday's edition of the Bettor's Box. A few things real quickly here before we transition over to the college basketball and NBA segment with John Ryan. A few injury updates here. A very bad one for the Indians. Carlos Carrasco hobbling around on crutches. We'll find out more tomorrow about his situation. Hopefully I'll have that insight, and have some of that information for you here when I do talk about the AL Central on the show. But this is bad. You got Mike Clevenger already probably missing a handful of starts in April. Now we'll see what the prognosis is for Carrasco. And the Indians didn't get much from Carrasco last year. He didn't pitch well early on in the year. Then the leukemia diagnosis, then came back and pitched in relief in September. So maybe this isn't the kiss of death for the Indians for this season with Carrasco now hurt. But this is a team that does not have a lot of margin for error. It was very, very thin. Now you've got cluster injuries at starting pitcher, and the starting rotation was the strength of this team. This is very worrisome, obviously a development to watch very closely, and this is why it is tough to bet some of those season win total overs, because as you start to get these cluster injuries, it really lowers the ceiling for a team. I think the Indians' ceiling is probably 92 or 93 wins. Maybe it's down to 90 or so with the pitching injuries. I still lean towards the over with them, but these are bad things. These are very bad things for a team before spring training games even get underway. Speaking of the Central Division here, no restrictions for Adalberto Mondesi for the Kansas City Royals. He's an electric player. He's a low on-base percentage guy, but speed for days, got a little bit of power. The Royals are an interesting lineup. This is an interesting guy. Good to see no restrictions for him. And obviously you want to follow along with this too. Guys that get hurt are a problem. But guys coming off of major injuries, major surgeries, you want to make sure that they're on the right path to be ready for opening day. And it looks like Mondesi is here at this point in time. A couple more injury notes here. Sean Murphy for the A's. Keep an eye on this one. Sean Murphy, a very highly touted catching prospect, had a knee procedure. He's off to a bit of a slow start here in the Cactus League. He's said to be fine, but we know he's a catcher. We know catchers and legs, very important for them. So keep an eye on that one as spring training goes along. Maybe it won't be an issue. Maybe he'll be fully healed. But watch out for that here with the A's, who will be relying on him quite a bit once the season gets underway. Going back to the Central Division here, Tigers pitching prospect Joey Wentz with a forearm issue. Forearm issues are always bad news. They're going to shut him down for 10 days. He was probably going to be a call-up late in the season. The Tigers' rotation could look a lot better in the second half, as I'll talk about on that segment on Monday. But Wentz with an early forearm issue here, very, very concerning, to say the least. Speaking of injured guys, Alex Reyes for the Cardinals is being stretched out and prepped as a starter here in spring training. Now, Miles Mikolas is out, flexor tendon injury. Reyes could help the Cardinals. I still bet their season win total under. That's a win total I'll post this afternoon over at BangTheBook.com. But stretching Reyes out as a starter does make a lot of sense. It's a good idea for them, but obviously we'll see how long he's able to stay together. Finally, one more note here, and I'll have a lineup construction rant or two once we get to the regular season, but Chris Bryant expected to bat leadoff here for the Chicago Cubs. I would prefer Anthony Rizzo, higher on base percentage, lower strikeout rate. Not a big deal either way, but again, one of those interesting little fantasy tidbits. And it does show that, David Ross going to be doing some maybe more creative things with the lineup than what we saw previously with Joe Madden. So something for you to keep in mind there regarding the Chicago Cubs. Once again, I'll be back with the Bettor's Box on Monday, taking a look at the AL Central with that five and fly segment, and of course some updates on any sorts of injury things along the way.